Imagine for just a minute that you are entirely weightless.
Oh, I love that feeling.
Right. You are floating in this boundless universe of liquid sapphire. There's no solid ground beneath your feet, no sky above your head. There is just this endless three-dimensional expanse of brilliant blue.
Just water in every direction.
Exactly. And the sunlight filtering down from the surface, it fractures into a million glittering prisms, just dancing in the water before completely vanishing into the heavy, crushing darkness of the abyss below.
The ocean really is a living, breathing entity down there.
It is. Its ancient currents are pushing gently against your massive frame. But your frame isn't built of heavy bone. It's actually engineered from lightweight, flexible cartilage. You don't swim through this liquid universe. You fly.
Oh, that is such a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, you beat your pectoral wings with this slow, hypnotic movement, stretching so far to your left and right that they span the width of an entire classroom.
That is massive.
And as you soar on the thermal currents of the sea, you unroll two spiraled muscular horns on your face, unfurling them into this wide funnel to scoop glowing microscopic life forms right into your cavernous mouth.
Like a giant spaceship gathering stardust.
It's exactly like that. From above, your velvety black back blends perfectly into the dark depths. But from below, your brilliant white belly glows, and it's speckled with these totally unique ink-like spots.
That sounds incredible.
So welcome back to Saltwater Stories. I am thrilled you're here with us today because we have just an amazing adventure ahead of us. Today, we are exploring the life of that magnificent aviator, the giant oceanic manta ray.
It's honestly such a privilege to talk about them. They really challenge everything we think we know about marine life.
They really do. And to truly understand them, we need to picture the ocean environment that shapes them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to place you, the listener, right beside a fully mature female giant manta ray during, well, probably one of the most critical high-stakes moments of her entire life.
Oh, I know where we're going with this. Set the scene for us.
Okay, so picture yourself hovering over a super vibrant, shallow coral reef. The ocean's currents are sweeping dynamically through the whole atoll, bringing this huge rush of warm, clear water.
Sounds peaceful so far.
It is, until the female beside you decides she's ready to find a mate. To kick this off, she releases a silent, completely invisible chemical signal directly into that rushing current.
Like an underwater beacon.
Exactly. And in a matter of moments, this peaceful reef just totally transforms into a gladiatorial arena. Dark shapes start materializing out of the blue mist.
Wow. How many are we talking about?
Well, first one, then maybe 5, then a dozen, until up to 30 massive male manta rays have arrived on the scene.
30. That is wild.
Yeah, and they align themselves nose to tail directly behind her, forming what marine biologists actually call a manta train.
A manta train. I love that so much.
It's basically a high-speed underwater ballet. You see, the female takes off, and the entire train of males has to perfectly mimic her every single move.
So it's kind of like a massive game of follow the leader.
A very intense game, yeah.
Yeah.
She swoops down toward the jagged coral. She banks sharply into the rushing current. And she even executes these breathtaking backward somersaults.
Wait, backward somersaults. These are 2-ton animals doing underwater gymnastics.
Right. She is the reigning champion of this reef. And she's making her suitors prove their worth in this exhausting, relentless test of agility, stamina, and honestly, cardiovascular fitness.
That is just incredible. Only the strongest, most resilient male that can actually match her acrobatic flight will win the right to swim beside her.
Precisely. It is survival of the fittest on full display.
Picturing 30 massive creatures, each with a wingspan wider than a car, just banking and swooping in perfect synchronization, it honestly feels like watching a fleet of submerged spaceships.
It really does. The grace is explosive.
Yeah, and the explosive grace required to navigate jagged coral at those speeds, it requires a body perfectly shaped for constant, unending motion. So how did this giant aviator actually come to be?
Well, exploring their family tree takes us hundreds of millions of years into the past.
Really? That long ago?
Yeah, manta rays belong to the class of cartilaginous fishes. If we look back roughly 250 million years ago, a massive split actually occurred in the oceans.
Okay, so what happened during the split?
So one branch of this family tree adapted for high-speed, open-water hunting. They evolved into those torpedo-shaped predators we know today as modern sharks.
Ah, okay. So sharks and mantas are essentially cousins.
Exactly. But the other branch took an entirely different path. They became dorsoventrally flattened. which basically means compressed from top to bottom.
Like a pancake.
Like a pancake, yeah. And they settled right into the sand on the ocean floor. These were the ancient ancestors of our modern mantas.
Wow. So they just hid in the mud.
Yep. For millions of years, they were bottom-dwelling ambush predators. They evolved eyes on the top of their heads to scan the water above them.
Makes sense if you're flat on the ground.
Right. And they had mouths on their undersides to crush hard-shelled crabs hiding in the mud, plus venomous stingers on their tails to defend against predators.
But wait, today's giant manta rays are the exact opposite of that. They don't hide, they definitely don't sit still, and they certainly don't eat hard-shelled crabs from the mud.
No, they don't.
So when did they decide to abandon the sand and take to the sky wall, the underwater sky?
That radical upward flight began during the Miocene epoch, roughly 20 million years ago.
Okay, what was happening in the ocean back then to cause that?
The global climate was shifting quite a bit. Ocean temperatures were cooling, and massive upwelling zones were creating these unprecedented blooms of plankton right in the open water column.
So a massive new food source just appeared above them.
Exactly. A specific lineage of these bottom-dwelling rays recognized this totally untapped, abundant buffet and just started venturing upward, completely abandoning the sand.
And as they adapted to the open ocean, their bodies just totally changed, right?
Yeah, natural selection drove a massive transformation. Because they weren't camouflaging on the bottom anymore, their pectoral fins elongated significantly, becoming those massive hydrodynamic wings.
So they evolved to fly across huge oceanic distances.
Right. And out in the open water, their best defense was speed. So those heavy venomous tail stingers actually became totally obsolete, and they evolutionarily discarded them.
That is so cool. They traded armor for speed.
They really did. And most crucially, to actually eat the microscopic plankton floating in the water, their mouths had to migrate.
Wait, migrate, like move across their face.
Yeah. The mouth moved from the underside of their body all the way to the front, evolving into this wide, forward-facing scoop designed to maximize water intake as they fly forward.
That structural shift is just unbelievable to try and visualize. And for a long time, we basically just assumed this evolutionary journey had only produced one single type of manta ray worldwide.
We did, yeah. For decades, everyone thought there was just one global species.
But that's not true anymore, is it?
No, not at all. We've discovered that there are actually distinct species based on subtle differences in genetics.
Okay, so let's break down the family tree. Who are the main players?
First, we have the giant oceanic manta ray. These are the deep ocean wanderers, the absolute largest of the group. You can identify them by these distinct T-shaped white patches on their shoulders and their very dark mouths.
T-shaped patches, got it. And who is the next one?
Then we have the reef manta ray. They are slightly smaller, and as the name implies, they really prefer coastal reef habitats.
So they hang out closer to shore. How do we tell them apart from the oceanic ones?
They feature Y-shaped shoulder patches instead of T-shaped, and they usually have white mouths instead of dark ones.
Okay, T-shape for oceanic, Y-shape for reef. But the ocean is full of surprises. We actually found a completely new species recently, didn't we?
Yes, the discovery of the Atlantic manta ray was monumental. Finding a new megafauna species that massive is just mind-blowing.
It really is. Where do these Atlantic mantas hide?
They're confined mostly to the western Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico. They went unrecognized for so long because they look super similar to the giant oceanic manta.
But they have some distinct markings, right? Like a secret con.
Exactly. They possess highly defined V-shaped shoulder patches, a noticeably lighter face, and their belly spots are confined strictly to the lower abdomen.
It just shows how much of our ocean remains a total mystery. Evolution is just this ongoing, dynamic magic trick.
It really is.
Speaking of magic tricks, I want to talk about how they developed those two spiraled horns on their face, the cephalic fins, because the cellular mechanism is absolutely wild.
It's a domain splitting. It is fascinating.
Yeah, because it's kind of like taking the wings of an airplane and folding the front tips forward to make a specialized scoop. How does a single fin literally just split in two while the baby is growing?
So those cephalic fins on their face are not actually separate limbs at all. They are highly modified extensions of their massive pectoral wings.
Okay, so they start as one giant wing.
Right. During development, the architecture of the fins is controlled by this network of proteins. We usually describe it using a gas and brake pedal analogy.
I love a good analogy. So what's the gas pedal?
The biological gas pedal is a specific protein that tells the cartilaginous cells to rapidly multiply and grow outward, making this massive, continuous circular disc.
Okay, pedal to the metal, growing a giant wing. Where does the break come in to create the split?
The break is a secondary protein. In the developing manta ray, this break protein activates at a highly specific localized spot right in the middle of the front edge of the fin.
So it just hits the brakes in one exact spot.
Exactly. It selectively stops the cells from growing right there.
Huh.
So by applying the break in this precise location, while all the surrounding tissue keeps growing outward, the single continuous fin literally bifurcates.
It splits the front of the wing in two?
Yes. It creates those independent muscular scoops separated from the main wing.
The DNA basically uses a chemical break to carve out a structural void. That is staggering precision.
It's beautiful biological engineering.
And having those scoops perfectly evolved to funnel water makes complete sense when you consider the sheer scale of the animal. Because they are true leviathans, right?
To really comprehend the scale of a giant oceanic manta ray, you have to step outside standard fish measurements.
Right, because they are basically the size of a dinosaur.
Pretty much. Fully grown adults consistently reach wingspans of 20 to 25 feet across.
And some get even bigger than that, don't they?
Yeah, some exceptionally large females can approach a 30-foot wingspan, and they can easily weigh over 4,000 pounds.
Wait, 4,000 pounds? That is heavier than a rhinoceros.
Significantly heavier, yes.
The visual comparison I like to use for you listening at home is a standard tennis court. Just imagine standing right on the center net line.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If a giant manta ray were hovering right in front of you, its wingtips would comfortably stretch all the way out to the white tram lines on both sides of the court.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around that size.
It is. And it makes me wonder, suspending a 4,000-pound animal in the water without it just sinking like a stone requires incredible buoyancy. Mammals use lungs. Bony fish use swim bladders. How does a manta ray stay perfectly neutral?
Well, the primary solution is their skeleton. Remember, they are cartilaginous fishes, so they completely lack heavy, calcified bone.
Cartilage is the stuff in our noses and ears, right?
Exactly. And cartilage is roughly half the density of bone, which drastically reduces their overall weight in the water.
So they are naturally lighter, but what about the wings themselves?
Their skeletal architecture is amazing. Their huge pectoral wings are supported internally by hundreds of long, finger-like radial cartilages extending outward from the center of their body.
Like the ribs of an umbrella.
Very much like that. And this matrix is both incredibly strong and highly flexible. It allows the wings to undulate with supreme efficiency.
So they aren't just stiffly flapping.
No, they don't merely push water backward. The flexibility allows the wings to generate lift on both the upward stroke and the downward stroke. They manipulate the fluid dynamics around them to glide effortlessly.
Fluid dynamics is such a big part of their story. From a distance, their skin looks totally smooth, almost like they are covered in wet rubber.
But if you look up close, it's a completely different reality.
Right. They are basically wearing biological armor.
Precisely. The skin of a manta ray is covered in microscopic tooth-like structures known as dermal denticles.
Tooth-like, like actual teeth all over their body.
Fundamentally, yes. They are constructed identically to a mammalian tooth. Each one has a central pulp cavity with blood, surrounded by dentine, and capped with a hard enamel shell.
That is wild. Why do they need millions of tiny teeth on their skin? Is it for protection against bites?
Well, it does offer some physical protection against abrasions and parasites, but their primary function is actually hydrodynamic.
It reminds me of the dimples on a golf ball, where texture actually helps it fly further. How do tiny teeth reduce drag in the water?
The denticles are highly organized, all pointing backward toward the tail. So as this massive animal moves forward, these microscopic peaks project into the very thin layer of water flowing directly over the skin.
And what does that do to the water?
They disrupt the smooth flow, creating these tiny, controlled microturbulences right at the skin's surface.
Oh, so it breaks up the suction.
Exactly. By creating that microturbulence, the denticles effectively prevent the formation of larger, energy-draining drag wakes behind the animal.
So the water essentially slips past them instead of pulling them backward.
Yes. This friction reduction is so profound that it allows a 4,000-pound leviathan to cruise through dense seawater while using only a fraction of the energy a smooth-skinned animal would need.
It's an engineering marvel right down to the microscopic level. But beyond the tiny teeth, the most striking feature of their skin is the coloration.
The belly spots.
Yes, the white belly spots, which look almost like someone just flicked black ink onto a blank canvas. And these aren't just random, are they?
No, they're critically important. Those spotting patterns serve as an unchangeable, lifelong biometric fingerprint.
So no two mantas have the same spots.
Never. The arrangement, the shape, and the density of those black spots on the white background are completely unique to every single individual.
And most mantas have that classic white belly and dark back, but there are some rebels out there, right? The
Yeah.
black morphs.
Oh, the melanistic mantas. Yes, melanism is a fascinating genetic variation. It causes an overproduction of melanin, rendering the individual almost entirely black on both their top and bottom surfaces.
A completely black 30-foot sea creature? That sounds terrifying and beautiful. Can you still see their spots if they're all black?
You actually can. Even in these melanistic individuals, subtle spotting patterns can still be detected using special lighting or infrared cameras.
The concept of a unique fingerprint raises an interesting developmental question for me. If a baby manta ray is born with a specific constellation of spots, what happens as it grows?
That is a great question.
Because it goes from a 6-foot baby to a 30-foot giant. Do the spots themselves grow bigger, or do they just spread out?
The core geometry of the pattern remains mathematically identical throughout their entire life. As the animal grows, the space between the spots just expands proportionally.
Okay, so how should we visualize that?
Imagine drawing a specific pattern of dots on a deflated balloon with a permanent marker. As you blow up the balloon, the dots move further apart and the surface area between them increases, but the actual constellation shape never changes.
Oh, that makes total sense. And that biological consistency is amazing because it allows us to track a single individual across decades just by taking a photo of its belly.
Exactly, without ever needing invasive tags.
That is so cool. But looking at their massive size and their constant movement brings up a pretty serious constraint because they never stop swimming, do they?
No, they never stop. Actually, they physically cannot stop swimming.
Wait, if they stop, what happens?
They suffocate. Manta rays are obligate ram ventilators.
Which means they have to ram water into their mouths to breathe.
Precisely. Many fish can just sit perfectly still on the ocean floor and manually pump water over their gills using muscles in their cheeks. But the manta ray lineage lost this ability millions of years ago.
So they have no backup pump.
None. The only mechanism they possess to extract dissolved oxygen from seawater is continuous forward momentum. They must ram water into their open mouths and over their gills unceasingly.
From the moment they are born until the moment they die.
24 hours a day, without exception.
That brings up an immediate question. If stopping means suffocation, how on earth does a manta ray sleep?
It is a profound mystery, honestly. We obviously can't attach a sleep monitor to a wild manta ray swimming in the open ocean.
Right, that would be a bit difficult. But what do we suspect they do?
Well, looking at other continuous swimming marine animals gives us some highly probable ideas. One hypothesis is unihemispheric slow-wave sleep.
Which means sleeping with half a brain.
Basically, yes. It's well documented in dolphins. One half of the brain enters a deep sleep state, while the other half remains awake to maintain basic motor functions and keep an eye out for danger.
That is wild. Are there any other theories?
Another idea is that their continuous swimming is controlled by an autonomic neural network in the spinal cord, essentially a reflex lip that doesn't require conscious brain activity at all.
Oh, like an autopilot setting.
Exactly. The body operates on autopilot, allowing the higher brain centers to completely rest.
Autopilot swimming, it's remarkable. But keeping a 2-ton body in constant motion, whether they are asleep or awake, requires a staggering amount of food. Which brings us to what I think is one of the greatest paradoxes in the ocean.
The giant filter feeder paradox.
Yes. The largest ray in the world fuels its massive body almost entirely by eating the absolutely smallest organisms in the sea.
It is one of the ocean's most elegant solutions to energy transfer. Manta rays sustain themselves on zooplankton, krill, and tiny fish eggs.
Which are microscopic.
Yes, but they represent the largest and most abundant mass of energy available in the ocean. By eating directly at the bottom of the food web, the manta ray avoids the massive energy loss that happens when you eat larger predators.
Okay, but to get enough calories from microscopic specks to fuel a 4,000-pound, constantly swimming body, they must have to eat an unbelievable amount of water.
They do, and they employ some extraordinary acrobatics to do it. When a manta encounters a dense patch of plankton, they don't just swim through it like a lawnmower.
I was going to say a lawnmower seems pretty inefficient. What do they do instead?
They exhibit several distinct feeding strategies. In moderately dense patches, a manta ray will perform consecutive backward somersaults.
A behavior called barrel rolling.
Yes. By continuously looping in a tight circle, they essentially trap themselves within the most nutrient-dense core of the plankton cloud.
So they don't accidentally swim past the buffet.
Right, while still maintaining that forward momentum they desperately need to breathe. But the most sophisticated behavior happens when huge groups gather together.
Oh, you are talking about the manta cyclone.
Yes, the manta cyclone.
Picture this. In places like Hanafuru Bay, you have up to 150 giant manta rays gathering in a single shallow area. And they don't fight over the food, they actually collaborate.
The cooperation is astounding.
They organize themselves into a massive synchronized circle. They swim nose to tail faster and faster, banking their massive wings to create a localized hydrodynamic vortex.
A literal tornado of 2-ton animals.
Exactly. And this spinning tornado acts like an industrial vacuum. It physically pulls all the helpless plankton upward from the depths and traps it right in the eye of the cyclone, right where their gaping mouths are waiting.
The spatial awareness required to execute a manta cyclone without constantly crashing into each other is a testament to their advanced senses.
But once that massive volume of plankton-rich water actually enters their mouths, we run into a really profound mechanical puzzle.
The colander problem.
Right. Think about standard filtration, like pouring a pot of pasta into a kitchen colander. The water passes through the holes, and the food gets trapped against the mesh.
Which works great for pasta.
But if a manta ray's gills worked like a colander, constantly trapping plankton against the mesh, those gills would clog completely within minutes.
And since a manta ray can't stop swimming, a clogged gill filter would be fatal. They would suffocate.
So how do they filter the water without clogging the filter?
For a long time, we honestly didn't know. We assumed it was like baleen whales, where water runs parallel to the filter and slowly pushes food to the throat.
But advanced fluid dynamics modeling showed us something completely different, didn't it?
Yes, they utilize an entirely novel mechanism never before documented anywhere else in the animal kingdom. It is called ricochet separation.
I love how this works. Inside their mouth, the filter is made of 5 specialized arches that look a bit like intricate double-sided combs, but they aren't catching the food.
No, catching food would clog them.
To visualize ricochet separation, imagine you are holding a rapidly spinning electric fan. Now throw a handful of small bouncy balls directly at the spinning blades.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Instead of the balls passing through the gaps or getting chopped up, the powerful air currents generated by the spinning blades cause the balls to physically ricochet backward, bouncing away from the gaps and right into your hand.
That analogy perfectly captures the fluid dynamics at play.
So the food is bouncing away from the holes.
Yes, the gaps in the manta ray's filter lobes are specifically angled to create what engineers call captive vortices.
Captive vortices, so tiny spinning whirlpools of water locked perfectly within the pores.
Exactly. These captive vortices act as invisible hydrodynamic shields. When a solid particle of plankton approaches the pore, the centrifugal force of that spinning whirlpool causes the particle to literally bounce off the fluid stream.
It ricochets back into the center of the mouth and washes straight down their throat.
So the food never actually touches the filter.
That is brilliant. The spinning whirlpools inside the gaps bounce the solids away, allowing perfectly clean, filtered water to slip behind the vortex and exit out the gills.
It is an infinitely self-cleaning system that simply cannot clog, regardless of how dense the plankton is.
It's so efficient that human engineers are actually using biomimicry to copy this exact mechanism. They are designing clog-free microplastic filters for wastewater treatment plants based directly on the manta ray's mouth.
Nature really is the ultimate engineer.
But as remarkable as this surface-feeding behavior is, the surface of the ocean isn't always a reliable buffet. Plankton blooms move around, so when the surface goes barren, where do these massive animals go?
Well, telemetry tracking tags prove that they look downward. Far, far downward.
Into the dark.
Yes. The daily routine of a giant manta ray completely shatters our traditional understanding of them as surface dwellers. During the day, they bask in the sunlit shallows, but as night falls, the data logs show them executing extreme, steep descents right into the twilight zone.
We are talking plunging into the freezing, crushing darkness of the mesopelagic zone. How deep do they go?
These tags regularly record giant manta rays diving well beyond 3,200 feet deep.
3,200 feet. Why would an animal expend the immense energy required to descend into an environment with absolute darkness, tremendous pressure, and near freezing temperatures?
To hunt in the deep scattering layer.
The largest migration of biomass on the planet.
Exactly. It happens every single night. It's this massive horizontal band of deep-sea, life bioluminescent lanternfish, deep water krill that hides in the crushing depths during the day. and slowly rises under the cover of darkness.
But how do we know for sure the manta rays are actually eating down there and not just, exploring?
The definitive proof comes from biochemical analysis of their muscles. When an animal eats prey, the unique chemical signatures of that prey become part of the predator's body.
You are what you eat, literally.
Literally. And the muscle biopsies of giant manta rays revealed exceptionally high concentrations of specific fatty acids that only come from deep-sea organisms. This proved they rely heavily on the deep ocean for their calories.
This presents a massive physical hurdle, though. A manta ray is a cartilaginous fish. They are cold-blooded.
Very true.
When they dive 3,200 feet deep, the water temperature drops to just a few degrees above freezing. In any normal cold-blooded fish, that thermal shock would cause their muscles to seize up and their brain to stop working.
It would be instantly debilitating.
So how does an animal with the largest brain of any fish survive this extreme freeze?
They overcome it through a miraculous internal structure called the retia mirabilia, which translates from Latin to the wonderful net.
The wonderful net, what does it do?
Inside their head, completely shielding the brain and the optic nerves, lies this highly specialized, dense network of interlaced veins and arteries. It functions as a highly efficient countercurrent heat exchanger.
Let's break that down. How does a net of blood vessels trap heat?
It begins with their perpetual motion. The massive muscles in their wings must continuously contract to keep them swimming, and this constant exertion generates a significant amount of body heat.
But in cold water, wouldn't that heat just instantly wash away through their gills?
In most fish, yes.
Oh.
But the wonderful net intercepts this blood flow. The warm blood returning from the wing muscles passes through this dense net of veins, which are tightly wrapped around the cold arteries coming from the gills.
Oh, I see.
The heat transfers directly across the vessel walls from the warm veins into the cold arteries before the heat can ever be lost to the ocean.
So they are actively shunting the heat generated by their wing beats directly up into their head.
Exactly. It essentially wraps their enormous brain and their massive eyes in a localized thermal blanket.
Keeping their cognitive and visual processing razor sharp, even when the rest of their body is literally freezing.
Yes. It allows them to operate as apex visual predators in the pitch-black environment, hunting by the faint glow of bioluminescence.
A wonderful net of warm blood powering a massive brain in the abyss. That is poetry. But the sensory data brings up another profound mystery.
Navigation.
Yes, when a manta ray is 3,000 feet deep in the featureless void of the open ocean, there is no sunlight, no coastline, no landmarks. How are they finding their way around?
The navigation of open ocean giants is a massive frontier right now. The telemetry tags show that these extreme deep dives aren't always about hunting. Sometimes a manta ray will descend rapidly, fly horizontally along a specific depth contour for a long time, and then slowly ascend.
Like they are scanning the area.
Precisely. Researchers hypothesize that these deep dives serve a dual purpose as an advanced biological navigation system.
So they are operating as living oceanographic submarines, because up on the surface, the ocean all looks the same. But deep down, there are massive underwater rivers, huge temperature shifts, and unique magnetic fields.
By diving deep, they can physically sample the water column. They might be reading geomagnetic gradients, detecting subtle shifts in oxygen, or following distinct thermal boundaries.
And they process all that complex data to calculate broad-scale navigation across thousands of miles of open ocean. The intelligence required for that is staggering.
It really is, but after enduring the freezing temperatures and the immense pressure of the Twilight Zone, they cannot remain in the dark forever.
Right, they have to warm back up. Which transitions our story from the lonely depths to the bustling, highly social metropolis of the coral reef.
Yes. Returning to the warm shallows is essential, not just for thermoregulation, but for vital hygienic maintenance. The open ocean is full of parasitic copepods and isopods that attach to their skin.
So to get rid of the bugs, they head to the spa.
Exactly. They exhibit strong site fidelity, returning routinely for highly specific coral reef outcroppings, universally known as cleaning stations.
The behavioral shift that happens when a giant manta ray pulls up to a cleaning station is just a fascinating display of interspecies communication. It's the equivalent of pulling a 2-ton semi-truck into a specialized car wash. What exactly happens?
The manta ray dramatically alters its entire physical posture. It slows its powerful wing beats to a near-stationary hover, holding steady against the reef current. Crucially, it drops its lower jaw wide open and completely unfurls those cephalic horns.
It's basically putting his hands up.
In the language of the reef, yes. This is a deliberate signal of submission. It broadcasts, I am an apex creature, but I am here to be cleaned, and I present absolutely no predatory threat.
And the reef responds immediately, doesn't it?
The moment the jaw drops, dozens of tiny, highly active cleaner wrasses dart out from the coral. They swarm the massive ray, picking off parasites, clearing dead tissue, and incredibly, they swim directly into the manta ray's gaping mouth and through its delicate gills without any fear of being eaten.
It is a paramount example of mutualistic teamwork. Both sides win. The cleaner fish get a highly concentrated food source, and the manta ray gets vital dermatological care.
And it is governed by a strict, unspoken code of conduct. If a cleaner fish accidentally bites healthy flesh, the manta ray will physically shudder, signaling its discomfort before swimming away, denying the fish its meal.
The precision is incredible, but what stands out most to me is the memory involved. Manta rays remember the exact geographic coordinates of these cleaning stations,
They migrate thousands of miles and return to the exact same rock.
and they often hang out with the exact same individual manta rays year after year. That level of spatial and social memory strongly suggests a brain capacity that far exceeds the traditional simplistic view of fill intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. This touches on a major paradigm shift in marine neurobiology. When we look at the brain architecture of the giant manta ray, we find they possess the highest brain-to-body mass ratio of any cold-blooded fish.
They have the biggest brains in the sea, comparatively.
But the absolute size is less important than how the brain is organized. A staggering 61% of their brain mass is dedicated entirely to the telencephalon.
And in vertebrate anatomy, the telencephalon is the cognitive powerhouse, right?
Yes. In mammals, this is the region responsible for advanced learning, spatial memory mapping, problem solving, and managing complex social interactions.
Finding a brain structure like that in a cartilaginous fish implies serious cognitive processing.
Furthermore, their brains contain an extraordinarily high concentration of specialized glial cells.
Glial cells, what do those do?
Unlike neurons, which transmit electrical signals, glial cells provide critical structural support and metabolic nutrients to the neural networks. The abundance of these cells correlates directly with heightened cognitive complexity.
So they have the hardware to be exceptionally smart.
To put it in perspective, the giant manta ray possesses a higher density of these support cells than many domesticated mammals.
A fish with the cognitive hardware rivaling terrestrial mammals. That is wild. And that neurological reality led researchers to test the boundaries of their intelligence with one of the most famous psychological experiments ever, the mirror self-recognition test.
The MSR test. It is a fascinating and highly debated piece of science.
So the goal of the mirror test is to see if an animal recognizes the reflection as itself rather than another animal. Historically, only humans, great apes, dolphins, and elephants have tested it.
Exactly. So researchers placed large underwater mirrors inside the enclosures of captive manta rays, and the initial results were striking.
Right, because lesser developed fish will usually attack the mirror, thinking it's a rival, but the mantis didn't do that.
No aggressive posturing at all. Instead, they engaged in a behavior called contingency checking.
Which means checking to see if the reflection mimics you. I read the behavioral logs, and they describe the rays performing these highly unusual repetitive movements. They would blow bubbles directly at the mirror.
And most surprisingly, they would repeatedly roll over to expose their pale bellies to the glass.
Yes, this specific self-directed behavior examining parts of your own body that you normally can't see without a mirror is a classic indicator of self-awareness in primate studies.
It is a profound observation.
But I have to play the skeptical scientist here for a second. Couldn't rolling over and exposing the belly just be a complex social greeting?
That is the big question.
Because if the manta ray has high social intelligence and it thinks the mirror is just a new manta ray friend, isn't it entirely possible that showing its belly is just a way of saying hello rather than true existential self-awareness?
That skeptical counterargument is precisely the center of a vigorous debate. Critics highlight that belly flashing and bubble blowing are occasionally observed in the wild during social interactions, like courtship.
So it might just be trying to flirt with its reflection.
Exactly. The skeptics argue it might just be soliciting a social response from what it perceives to be a second animal.
It just highlights how difficult it is to measure alien intelligence using human-centric tests. Just because a manta ray ambiguously passes or fails a test designed for chimpanzees doesn't mean it isn't profoundly intelligent. It just interacts with reality differently than we do.
Very true. The debate just underscores that we need more holistic ways to test them. But regardless of whether they have philosophical self-awareness, their brains undeniably support profound memories. and highly complex social structures.
And those social structures are most vividly displayed right back at the cleaning stations. Because they aren't just hygienic clinics, are they?
No, they serve a dual purpose. They are the primary social hubs of the reef. They act as gathering points to find a mate.
Which bridges us perfectly back to the breathtaking courtship train we witnessed at the very beginning of the show.
Indeed. Following the exhaustive high-speed manta train, the courtship culminates. The single successful male will position himself precisely, gently biting down on the female's left pectoral fin to hold steady against the current.
And what follows this brief union is one of the most demanding reproductive cycles in the ocean.
It is incredibly arduous. Manta rays are oviviparous.
Which means they lay eggs, but the eggs stay inside the mother.
Exactly. The embryo develops inside a protective egg casing, but it hatches internally within her uterus. She eventually gives birth to live young.
But a manta ray pup isn't a tiny little thing. When it's born, it can have a wingspan of 6 feet across. How does the mother provide enough calories to grow a massive baby inside her without a mammalian placenta or an umbilical cord?
They utilize a miraculous biological adaptation known as lipid histotrophy.
Lipid histotrophy. How does that work?
Well, early on, the embryo relies on a yolk sac. But that yolk sac holds only a fraction of the energy needed to grow a 2-ton species pup. Once the yolk is gone, the mother's uterine lining radically adapts.
What happens to it?
It develops thousands of specialized finger-like projections called trophonomata.
And these projections act as biological nutrient dispensers.
Precisely. They secrete a highly concentrated protein and lipid-dense fluid, commonly referred to as uterine milk.
Uterine milk. Wow.
And the developing pup, completely free-floating inside the uterus, must actively swallow this rich milk to fuel its rapid growth, while absorbing oxygen directly from the surrounding fluid.
That continuous internal feeding must place an immense metabolic burden on the mother. She has to basically double her plankton intake during a gestation period that lasts between 12 and 13 months.
Over a full year of gestation, constantly swimming, feeding 2 bodies.
And the culmination of that effort is an incredible birth event. The mother gives birth to a single pup. And because of the massive wingspan, the pup is born tightly furled, rolled up like a biological burrito to pass safely out into the water.
A burrito baby, yes.
The moment it clears the mother's body, it instantly unfurls those 6-foot wings and takes its very first flight. There is no maternal care. It is completely independent from the very first second of its life.
This immediate independence is a harsh necessity. While a fully mature adult faces almost no natural threats, a newborn pup is highly vulnerable.
Their primary predators are apex species, right?
Hmm.
Tiger sharks, great hammerheads, and orcas.
Yes, and without stingers or teeth, the pup's singular survival mechanism when targeted by a tiger shark is explosive speed and evasive flight.
But they don't always escape completely unharmed. The photographic logs out there are filled with mantis displaying massive crescent-shaped chunks missing from their wings, the unmistakable signature of a shark bite.
Tragically, they also suffered devastating strikes from human boat propellers and fishing gear.
Yet, looking at how their bodies respond, they possess a nearly miraculous mechanism for surviving catastrophic trauma.
Their capacity for cellular regeneration is astonishing. Field studies documenting massive amputations on wild individuals reveal a rapid healing curve.
How fast are we talking?
Researchers have meticulously measured deep, horrifying wounds. Wounds that would easily be fatal to most mammals, achieving 90% physical closure in a mere 69 days.
69 days. The photos of this healing process are unbelievable. You see a huge chunk of flesh missing, and weeks later, new cartilage aggressively draws the wound margins together. The body completely remodels itself, leaving only a smooth nick on the wing.
It's a biological superpower.
It is, but this rapid healing creates a really dangerous paradox for people trying to protect them, doesn't it?
It creates a severe phenomenon known as data masking. Because a manta ray can survive a horrific boat strike and heal so cleanly, visual surveys dangerously underestimate the frequency of human interaction.
Because the evidence of the trauma literally erases itself.
Exactly. Managers might look at a population, see very few fresh wounds, and incorrectly assume a shipping lane is safe, when in reality, the animals are suffering frequent, high-impact strikes.
That masking effect just highlights the underlying fragility of the entire species. When you look at their population dynamics, the math is terrifying. You have an animal that takes 10 to 15 years just to grow up. When they finally do mate, they endure a 13-month pregnancy to produce only one single pup.
And they often wait several years before reproducing again.
Right. A healthy female might only produce 4 to 7 pups over her entire 40 to 50-year lifespan. This means they are mathematically incapable of replacing their numbers quickly. Every single individual in the ocean is absolutely critical.
That is the tragic reality of their evolutionary strategy. It relies on high adult survival rates. For millions of years, it worked flawlessly. But today, they cannot rebound from sustained mortality. And the greatest threat is entirely human-made.
Let's talk about the human relationship with these animals, because historically it's a fascinating mix of reverence and terror. If we look at traditional indigenous Hawaiian culture, the manta ray holds a place of profound respect.
The halua.
Yes, the halua, which translates to two breaths or two mouths, it is viewed as a spiritual bridge connecting the physical ocean with the unseen ancestral realm. For many families, the manta ray serves as a deeply revered ancestral guardian spirit. To encounter one is a blessing.
A powerful sign of natural protection rooted in sustainable coexistence.
But if you contrast that with the historical European perspective, it shows how fear of the unknown dictates behavior. Early Western mariners frequently encountered these massive dark wings breaching the surface, topped with two large horns.
And misinterpreting the biology, they birthed the pervasive myth of the devilfish.
The 19th century logs are filled with these completely fabricated legends of monstrous sea demons intentionally wrapping their wings around anchor chains to drag boats into the abyss. It's absurd when we know those horns are just soft funnels for catching microscopic plankton, and the animals themselves are incredibly gentle.
The devilfish myth has largely faded, thankfully, but it has been replaced by a much more destructive phenomenon, the gill plate trade.
Over the past 2 decades, these rays have been ruthlessly targeted by unregulated fisheries, driven not by a need for meat, but specifically for their gill plates. The exact cartilaginous filaments we discussed earlier, the brilliant structures that create the ricochet vortices. Why is there a global market for fish filters?
The gill plates are harvested, dried, and exported primarily to markets in Asia, where they are sold under the trade name Peng Yu Sai. They are boiled into a tonic marketed with claims that it boosts the human immune system and cures respiratory ailments.
And I think it is critical to emphasize that there is absolutely zero empirical medical evidence supporting any of these health claims. Furthermore, Peng Yu Sai has virtually no historical precedent in actual ancient medicine.
None.
It is a modern commercial fabrication, a marketing campaign designed entirely to create a lucrative market for a byproduct. And beyond being medically useless, the toxicology reports prove that consuming this tonic is actively hazardous to human health.
The toxicological reality is alarming. Because manta rays are long-lived filter feeders, they are highly susceptible to bioaccumulation.
Meaning they absorb toxins from the water over their lifespan.
Yes. Over decades of filtering millions of gallons of seawater, their tissues absorb and store trace heavy metals. Independent lab tests on confiscated gill plates revealed dangerously high, toxic concentrations of arsenic, cadmium, mercury, and lead.
So consumers are paying exorbitant prices for a fabricated medicine that is actively poisoning them with heavy metals. Yet the economic incentive for the fishermen remains staggering. This has absolutely decimated regional populations.
We've seen catastrophic declines of over 90% in some specific localized regions over a mere 20-year period. A population collapse of that magnitude creates devastating cascading effects throughout the ecosystem.
However, looking at the modern conservation data provides a really powerful counter-narrative of hope. When human ingenuity and political will align, rapid ecological recovery is entirely possible. The case study of the Raja Ampat Archipelago in Indonesia is the premier example of this.
It is one of the most uplifting conservation success stories.
In 2012, the Indonesian government designated the entire archipelago as Southeast Asia's first comprehensive shark and ray sanctuary.
But crucially, they didn't just ban fishing. They restructured the local economy. The government directly tied the funding from maritime enforcement and community development to regional ecotourism revenue.
By providing sustainable, highly profitable alternatives, they transitioned communities from extractive fishing to ecological stewardship. And the biological rebound was spectacular.
Localized manta ray populations exhibited massive growth rates within a decade.
Economic studies proved conclusively that a living giant manta ray, drawing awestruck scuba divers from around the globe, generates millions of dollars in sustainable regional income, vastly eclipsing the one-time lethal payout of the gill plate trade.
It proves that conservation is the foundation of a sustainable economy.
And the most exciting aspect of modern conservation is that it is no longer restricted to just marine biologists. Everyday people are driving global research through citizen science, leveraging the unique biological fingerprint we discussed earlier, the belly spots.
The integration of artificial intelligence into public conservation is completely revolutionizing the field.
It used to be impossible to manually identify tens of thousands of individual manta rays from scuba diving photographs.
Right.
But conservationists collaborated with software engineers to develop the MantaMatcher platform.
And the engine driving this database is an AI algorithm called HotSpotter.
I love the origin of this. HotSpotter wasn't designed for marine biology at all. It was originally developed by computer scientists for human facial and fingerprint recognition systems.
That is correct. When a scuba diver takes a photograph of a manta ray's belly and uploads it, the AI rapidly analyzes the unique spatial geometry of the black spots. It mathematically maps the constellation and instantly compares that new image against tens of thousands of historical records to find a match.
This means any recreational diver anywhere in the world with a simple waterproof camera can actively participate in global marine tracking. By uploading a single photo, you help scientists map cross-oceanic migrations and determine true lifespans across international borders.
All achieved without ever having to capture or physically tag a single animal.
We're utilizing human facial recognition technology to track 4,000-pound cartilaginous fish across the globe. It is a stunning convergence of biology and technology.
Gives me a lot of hope for their future.
As we bring our journey to a close, let's just reflect on the sheer wonder of the organism we've explored today. We started with the intricate genetics applying a biological break to physically split a fin in half. We analyzed the incredible fluid dynamics of ricochet vortices, a filter so perfectly engineered that human scientists are striving to replicate it.
We tracked a warm-brained giant plunging thousands of feet into the freezing darkness of the mesopelagic zone to hunt glowing prey.
And we looked into the eye of a creature possessing the neurological hardware to potentially recognize its own existence when looking in a mirror.
We live in an era where we have mapped the distant stars and we carry supercomputers in our pockets. Yet we share our fragile planet with a 4,000-pound, self-aware aviator, the deep, whose complex language and navigational maps we're only just beginning to comprehend.
So the next time you look out at the seemingly empty, vast surface of the ocean, consider the profound mysteries hidden below. Ask yourself, what other giant, quiet intellects are soaring through the dark right beneath the waves, just waiting for us to finally pay attention?
It is a beautiful thought to leave on.
Keep your eyes on the horizon and your curiosity as deep as the Twilight Zone. Thank you for joining us on this incredible exploration. Until our next journey into the blue, we'll see you next time on Saltwater Stories.